The wiki on our projects has been coming along pretty well to the point where we feel safe enough to actually show it to people. Follow the link in the pinned messages and you'll see about 60% of all the work we've done so far. Go to our Discord or Telegram channels if you want to contribute. Play nice though if you don't want us to private it all again. Sino We'll start this year with the animes we've skipped, for no better reason than to make a good closure and to give us a bit of a leeway, because the effects of wearing me are starting to show. Oh, and also some of my employers don't like getting bombed. See, shit like this is why you need to train your emotional detachment. Gets you immunity to life or death situations. Chainsaw Man is one of those animes I personally vetoed because I kinda knew that I'll have nothing much to say about it, not anything that hasn't been said by the grifters anyhow. This was probably the most technically well-made show I've seen, with 3D being so good you can't often distinguish it from 2D if there was any. The story... well, the music is also pretty good, though not as memorable as compared to Song of the Night. Okay, the story is serviceable. It's your average shonen story of a teenage boy getting superpowers and starting to work for an organization, but also everything is sufficiently grim and dark, and, I don't know, something about the whole presentation just rubbed me the wrong way. I guess it's the characters themselves and their personalities, because they all act like they should act, for a lack of a better term, and it makes it boring to watch, because I'm surrounded by people like that all the time. Here's the thing about violence, folks. Real-life violence is actually fairly boring to watch. People don't explode into funny bits, they just kinda stumble over, squirm for a bit and stop moving, and you're not even the one pulling the trigger. The only reason why violence is fun in video games and IRL is because it is you who is doing the violence. It stimulates your brain. Just watching a recording of it is not fun, it's at best arousing, at worst will give you nightmares for a few days. And when you can clearly see that these people are just, well, people, I personally stop caring much. They're not heroes. They're just men and women fighting the supernatural. That is expected in these sorts of jobs. The next thing on the cutting block is the Apartment Block C, a 4-episode horror anime that was cut because the premise of it was boring for my employers, and to my surprise, it's not just your average horror show, it's a Lovecraftian horror show that tells us a very Lovecraftian story to the point where not only we start with a prayer to Yog-Sothoth, but also in true Lovecraftian fashion, it features the greatest and most horrifying enemy of man that ever was, Muslim immigrants! But yes, overall the horror of the story is actually okay, I suppose. As I said before, the biggest reason why literary horror works is because your imagination takes most of the job in scaring you. Visual horror, on the other hand, doesn't actually allow that because you can clearly see the threat, so instead it tries to scare you with threats, either to your social stability or bodily cohesion. This anime's whole premise is that on this sleepy little island where barely anything happens, some random fuckers come in with a bunch of Muslim immigrants and thus begins the usual culture clash of natives not liking the exotic foreigners that much. But in the usual style of modern Lovecraftian horror, it turns out that the actual problem was the real estate guy and his family who let these Muslim immigrants here in the first place because they wanted to kill people in the name of their god. It's a very weird story, to be really honest with you, because, let's be real here, what can you do with this premise realistically? If you're going to say that Muslims are evil, well, that won't look good, even though it'll probably be something in Lovecraft's spirit. If you're going to say that local Japanese are evil and xenophobic, well, that too would be in spirit, but that's not that good either, and the other god, or whatever we have in here, isn't even an active player in these people's misery, so the only thing left is to summon crazy cultists into here as the main and frankly out of nowhere villains. What even is the point of Lovecraftian myths these days in general? From the way I look at this, it basically has the same significance and functionality as Greek and Norse mythology does to many people. It's the go-to thing when you're too lazy to create your own gods for your own settings, and just like with Greek and Norse mythology, people know the pop culture interpretation of the myths more than the actual myths. For all intents and purposes, they have been canonized in the popular consciousness and something that is equal to mythologies of the real world, and I'm not really sure what to make of it. Will Slenderman, SCP, or the Backrooms have the same happen to them? Or will they just blend into the Lovecraftian myths with time, creating this horror universe? So many thoughts, so little time.